15th September 2015 could have been an extraordinary day for you. For me, it was the darkest and the worst day of my life. 8 p.m., I received a phone call that the man I cherished and had known for all my life had breathed his last. Nothing can ever prepare you for the loss of a parent. It does not matter whether you have grown up and moved on, whether they are in the evening of their lives. A parent will always be a parent. And when they move on, when they pass on, our lives can never remain the same. Have you subscribed to my YouTube channel? What are you waiting for? Subscribe, hit the notification button, leave a comment down below that you will be the first to know when our new videos are uploaded. Join the conversation on our Twitter handle at Susan K. World, on Facebook at theworldilivein, and you will be blessed. In today's conversation, I will be sharing experiences with a host of my guests. On my right, I have Barbara. The extreme right is Diana.
Hi.
And turning to my left is Viola. The extreme left is Salome.
Hi.
Join us in our conversation tonight. Diana, I know that you lost your dad and your mom on the same day. Going back in time, how did it feel when you had the information? What happened?
Thank you, Susan. Death is something that is inevitable for everybody, particularly for me on that day. It was very heartbreaking because their news comes in. The first one is Daddy has died. The second one is after a difference of hours, Mommy has also passed on. So before you can even take in the first message, you get the second message. So it was very heartbreaking. And at the same time, I knew that it was, I was actually a new mother, less than a month old, my firstborn. So I knew that I would not be able maybe even to, there was so much going on in my mind, but it wasn't a simple time, it wasn't an easy time.
I believe there are several of us who have lost our parents in similar circumstances, maybe in an accident or a food poisoning or something that took both parents away from you at the same time. Moving on to Viola, do you remember that day when your dad passed? Where were you and how did it feel like?
Incidentally, I was feeding my father. He was I think it was the third day in his coma, and I was feeding him porridge. I remember it was 4 o'clock on a Tuesday at 10th April, and I was feeding him porridge. So my mom had made the porridge and said, like, you feed your father the syringe. So she was like next door. And Numulago by then, I don't know what they call it these days. So I'm feeding him the syringe, then the breathing changes. So of course back then I had never really been around someone who had died, like really been there. So then suddenly she comes out, she presses that thing like
on the bed, the doorbell to alert the doctors and the nurses.
There were no doctors. There was just one nurse who was on the ward, in the cancer ward. There were so many cancer people and she was the only one. And I think she was just doing her rounds as best as she could, because our doctor had not come to see us in 2 weeks, even when he got into the coma. So he had not been around. So it was us figuring out what to do. So I was feeding him, and as I was feeding him, everything turned. So when I realized now it was actually because people started running, my mother was trying to do CPR, and then the nurse came running, and of course they were trying to do it together, because my mother, even her, was struggling to do it. So me, I just left the room because I knew that that's what it meant. So when I left the room, I knew, So in the next, I don't know whether it was 1 minute or so, they said he had died. So I didn't want to be there when it was now finally done, because I knew that was the process.
That can be quite devastating, witnessing the last breath of your parent. Barbara, can you tell us what happened? I know you lost your mom and then you lost your dad. How did you feel on those two different occasions? How did you feel when you got the news that Mommy had passed away, first of all? How did it make you feel? Then a few years later, Daddy passes on.
Oh, God, like you said, death isn't something that you expect. Okay, you expect, but you're like, no, it's not going to happen now. It doesn't happen to me. So actually, Dad passed on first, and I was with him. We're in the hospital. So at that moment, I was like, let me go take a breather out. I was with my sister. So we decided to take a walk just outside the ward. We're at in Zambia Hospital. So as I was taking a walk, we just had, like, it was, I think, barely 5 minutes. We just had a loud scream. And we just both rushed back in. So when we rushed back in, and then my auntie, my dad's sister, was wailing, it has happened. So we rushed. I rushed. I started shaking his body. I'm like, no, you can't do this to us. You have to wake her. Dad, you have to wake her. So, like, then I wasn't like, I was thinking, no, he has to leave this.
Yes.
No way this can be happening to us. So when I saw, like, he's not moving and he's limp and I'm just shaking his body, of course, he broke down and cried. So I personally took my dad's body to the mortuary. I walked with them. I was like, no, I have to see. Maybe by the time I reach there, because you know when you watch the movie,
he will have resurrected.
Like, no,
he's just unconscious, and
yeah, it was so painful. Back then, it was so painful. But it's 15 years this last month on July 26th. That's now for my mom. My mom, I didn't expect her to die at all. She had an accident, and they're like, okay, the ribs are broken. She's not breathing. She's going to be fine. So, like, we nursed her for 10 days, and we're saying, yeah, she's going to recover.
She's recovering.
Yes. The first few days, she couldn't recognize us. The 5th day, she woke up from her sleep, and she's like, Barbara, the excitement. So I was like, she's going to live. She's going to live. There's no way she's going to die. And then, sadly, that night that she died was the night that, after 8 days of being in the hospital, I'm like, no, let me go home and have a break. So I get home, but I don't know what it is about death that somehow, for some people, you pick on it, and like you're kind of restless. So I was like, is everything okay with her? Have they checked internal bleeding of the lungs? After around 10 p.m., we got a call telling us she had passed on. And being the oldest, I had to be strong for them. Yeah, so that time it was really so painful. But I just thank God now I can talk about it, like, and smile and not tear up.
Yeah, and of course, when a parent dies, it's a lot of confusion. There's a lot of confusion that sets in. I actually remember when you say that, I remember the time when my father passed, when that phone call came in at 8 o'clock. I am told I made an alarm, and I don't remember doing that. But I remember the next morning, our neighbors walking into our home. And the reason why they did come, they thought it was domestic violence. That most probably we were fighting in my house. That's why they had to come and check. But I've come to realize that actually in that moment, you don't know what to do. You don't know what to expect. And the only thing that you're thinking about is that maybe he's actually still in there. She's still in there. They have just missed something. Because when that phone call came in for me, I remember calling them, telling them, are you sure? Can you check again? Are you sure? Because we were far away from the hospital. They had to get an ambulance, take him to hospital. But of course, they made me think that maybe he's, now that they've put him in the ambulance and they're taking him to hospital, because I think the way I had this expectancy that he had just gone into maybe a coma state and he would come back. So they just said, well, we will inform you later, but the ambulance has come and we are taking him to hospital. So I believe it's very difficult for us to ever get used to the loss of a parent. It's something that we fight with everything that we know, with everything that we have. Well, do you believe that you get used to this with time?
Not that you get used, but then the pain kind of lessens. The pain gets less with time, but there are days and the moments of things that remind me of my dad or remind me of my mom. And then you kind of have a moment where you're down and low, but then you pick yourself up again and like, you know what? They are not coming back.
Yeah.
This is now my life. I have to find a way of dealing with it.
Salome, you lost your dad when you were still very young.
Yes.
Do you have any remembrance of anything that happened? Can you picture what happened then? You were in about S6, you were about 18. You were not very young, really. Yes. In your vacation.
Yes.
What happened to you?
Okay, my dad was in the hospital for like 3 days and I had not gone there. There were our aunties, my sister. So I decided to go there also. When I reached, they were feeding him and the rest of the people were out. I was just there with my aunt. And actually, as I was standing there, immediately I reached, he breathed his last. So I ran outside telling people that dad had passed on. And people were saying, no, 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 no. It can't be. So we remained outside. He was everything to us. I don't know even what was going on because we were just there helpless.
I believe that when a parent moves on, it's the first instinct that we all have as human beings is no, it can't be happening to me. They can't have left, they can't have died. They must be resting. The doctors have missed something because that is what we hope for. Nobody ever expects their loved ones to die. I remember after my father passed and we had to go for the funeral. I remember the following day standing in the window and looking outside at the masses that had gathered to send him off. And when I looked outside, it seemed like everybody was going on with their lives. If you've noticed at funerals, at funerals, people are actually having their conversations.
That is the thing that really
Yeah.
bothers me.
People are having their conversations, they're on their phones, most probably making their business deals, calling back somebody, telling them it's only a few minutes until this ends, then I get back. So looking outside and seeing these people doing different activities, I actually went cold. Because in that moment, I realized that pain, grief, sorrow, when you lose a parent, you who has lost the parent, it's you who feels it. The other people console you. They feel sorry for you, but they can never feel the pain that you're going through, the sorrow, the sadness, the depression. And I remember I became so numb. And all that time, I think I operated like a robot. I was not crying. I was not feeling. I was just there. Because I had never lost really somebody that I felt really had touched my life that much. But the understanding that your loss, it's only you who actually feels it, is a very different thing. Other people will be there for us. They will comfort us, most probably say different words to us to make us feel calm and to help us know that we will get through with it. But nothing can prepare us for that kind of loss. And of course then comes when after everybody else has left the funeral, then you are with the family. Then what do you remember after everybody has gone and you're alone with the family? What happened?
Now, for me, my situation, I guess it should be, when I share this, it should be able to help somebody else. Because one, I did not even bury.
Wow.
Because I had just given birth, it was a C-section.
Wow.
So it was so difficult that you've lost two darling parents of yours and you cannot.
You can't move. You can't.
So it's not only the pain of I have a loss, but even I'm not able to even
Send them off and get closure.
You know. So that was the worst moment. Like you said, you become numb. there's so much going on in your head. Not no longer just not the loss. It is something you just cannot explain, because I ended up living a denial world where I was like, they have never died, or they are not dead, because I was not at the graveside. So I lived with this for some time, quite a long time. It took me time to truly accept that they had died. Actually, I've lived years where I actually speak and I think my parents took a walk somewhere. They went for a journey somewhere, because even if I look at the graves, for me, because I did not take part in that
In the
moment,
burial ceremony.
yes, with the family and everybody, it has taken me years to actually come to believe that they are gone. Many times, even in this old age of mine, I sit and I still believe my parents took a walk somewhere. They
That's-
just went for a walk
That's
somewhere.
very interesting. It's very, very, very interesting. Barbara, in that moment, when everybody has gone, everybody who made you feel like it's all okay, then you remain with most probably your nucleus family, or you may have some few aunties, some few uncles, maybe your mom's best or your that parent's friend that has remained around. What is the feeling in that moment?
It's a very difficult time when everybody else has left. The people that have been comforting you, helping you do the cooking, making it seem like life is normal. When actually there's nothing normal in that. When most of the people left, my grandma, my mom's mother, decided to stay with us for a few more days, seeing that my dad was really hit with my mom's death. So that one was not so. We felt like there were people around, because even then my aunties would take time to come and spend time with us. Now the most difficult part was when my dad passed on, because then everyone was like, I think these girls are now old enough. They've been through it. That's what I thought. They probably thought. So we're left alone, and being the oldest, I had to think of school, organize my siblings, speak to them. So at that point, the thing that helped me most was like, years before, I had given my life to Christ. And so somehow I found a comfort, but still I was angry at God. I was like, God, if you say you're a loving God, how can you've even taken...
How can you do this to
how
us?
can you do this to us? You took my mother, now you've taken my father, so you want to leave us alone. How are we going to manage? So that, honestly, I was like on a remote, like, wake up to this, go pick up this, go to work, come back and do that. But then shortly after that, a few months after, because the time my dad died, I was expecting. So I thought I would easily like miscarry, but I didn't. So that was also another thing that kept us going. So when my fiance then, he comes from Abu Dhabi, he was like, no, I'm going with you, let's go and start our new life. I was like, no, I can't leave my siblings. Who am I going to leave them with?
That was something very...
Yeah, because he had gotten the passport, he was now going to hand in for me to get the visa. It's like, no, I can't leave my siblings alone. I have to take care of them. My dad trusted me that I would, because when my dad was ill in the hospital, he told me, Barbara, I am going. And I'm like, no, you're not. He's like, yes, I am, and I know you can take care of your siblings. And I told him, they're not my children. And he's like, you can't take care of them. So we had that conversation, but I was like, him being him, most of the times, like, I knew him as someone who was also like sarcastic in his conversation. So I thought, maybe he's just talking. So when I gave birth to my first child, it like wiped off. It was like a beautiful thing, something beautiful in a darkness, like light in a darkness.
Okay.
So Shazad just brought that to all of us, to my aunties, to my grandma. They were all so excited, and somehow, and everyone kept insisting, because my dad is called Peter, everyone kept insisting, call him Peter, call him. I'm like, no, it's going to be called Ethan. Because Ethan, one of the men that carried the Ark of the Covenant, like Ethan means strong. So I'm like, I'm consistently strong. the Lord is my strength. So with that,
Mm-hmm.
like, you know, hearing a baby cry, the giggles, the excitement.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think 9 months after my parents had died, my dad had died, that's when I had him. And then it brought back people again in our home.
Okay.
My dad's siblings in the village like traveled. Oh, Peter's first grandchild. So it kind of
Brought back the family together.
Yes, brought back the family together. So yeah, in both instances there was a time of like transition of out of like your loneliness and you're not left alone.
Okay. You're moving from this dark place
Yeah.
out of into a much better place.